Thanks, Trish. They say that you can tell how important a politician is by how long it takes to organise to get them to be at your event. So were Trish to be organising this morning to have Barack Obama, because he is in town, probably a year or so negotiation. Jeremy Corbyn, good 5 or 6 months. But when she texted me this morning and said, look, Stella, what are you doing later? I thought, I would love to come here, not least because it is a genuine privilege to be on stage with Sophie and with Karen. I think you agree with me, they've just given absolutely amazing, inspiring feedback. But I'm also here because I'm on a bit of a mission. I'm on a mission to piss you off. And when I say that, I mean in the best sense of the term. In the term that Gloria Steinem, that amazing feminist, said, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off a bit. So let me tell you some truths. In the last 4 years, the numbers of allegations of rape in this capital city alone have gone up 79%. The number of charges has not. We have a gender pay gap in this country of 13%, but in London, it's 20%. Think that we're making progress? There are still more men today in Parliament than there have ever been women MPs. Go to somewhere like Davos, where they make big, important decisions about the world, and you'll see that the numbers of women attending has stayed stubbornly at around 20%. But you'll say, but hang on a minute, there's a quota. For every company that brings 5 people, 1 of them has to be a woman. What are the companies doing? Bringing 4 men only. We live in a world where we are not making the progress that we should be making. And the best example I know of this comes from another woman who I believe is a goddess, which is Gina Davis. You'll know her from Thelma and Louise. Gina has devoted her life to studying women's representation. And she did a very powerful study that shows that if a room has 20% women in, the men think it's 50-50. And if it has 33% women in, the men think there's more women than men in the room. We are living in the 80-20 society, not just in my workplace, but across our media, across our academia, across our judiciary, across our medical professions. Everywhere you look, there is a glass ceiling. Yes, you are discriminated against as a woman. If you really want to get pissed off, go and read the Hyland-Okamoto studies that show that women and men acting in exactly the same way in the workplace as leaders get judged completely differently. So, put your hands up if you're angry yet. See, there are a few more I've got to convince. I don't just want to make you angry though. I want to share with you my theory. And I call it the AAA battery theory. Because let's face it, ladies, we all know the best things have AAA batteries. So you need 3 A's. The first thing you need is not just to be angry, but to have answers. Sympathy is the biggest killer of social progress. People saying they're sorry, people wringing their hands, people just saying, well, I do agree with your analysis, the world is unfair, but not thinking they have anything to do about it. As a politician, that is the easiest thing for me to do. Come to me with an idea. Come to me with an answer about how the world can be different. I've got to make a decision whether I'm with you or not. That is how change happens. So think about answers to the injustices that you see. Don't let other people define to you what is possible. Identify those answers yourself and fight for them yourself. And that's the second thing you need, which is actions. Don't believe the hype. Now, I work in a place that I like to call Hogwarts gone wrong, and genuinely think I've seen Hagrid at points. But it's not up to just 650 people alone in this country to achieve change. You've already had here today the phenomenon that is Laura Bates. Everyday sexism is changing the way we talk and think about misogyny in our society. Every one of us has power, has influence, has resources to be able to bring towards change. But it means being able to act. So don't sit on the sidelines. Recognise that you have the power to change things and make sure you use that power. Now, I take my inspiration from that from a lady I like to call Mrs. 41. And I call her Mrs. 41 because I'm number 313. and that's MPs in the House of Parliament who were female. Bessie Braddock, she was an MP in Liverpool. Bessie didn't sit on the sidelines. Bessie was so frustrated when she was a local councillor, she took a 2-foot megaphone into the town hall to make sure that the men listened to her. She didn't stop there. Bessie was so concerned about gun crime in the 1920s in Liverpool that she took an air rifle into the House of Commons chamber and fired it. And when people said to her, "What on earth are you doing, Bessie?" she said, "Well, you have to startle people in here to get them to think about doing things differently." Taking action is about startling people. Now, for avoidance of doubt, I'm not asking you to take up arms, but I am asking you to think about how you can act to startle people. To be somebody like Bessie, who they used to say, rocked the boat so much that she made people feel seasick at the sight of her. Because that's what this country needs. We need activists if we're going to get change. But I know that's a really hard thing to do. Now, Trish mentioned I took on the Twitter trolls because I was part of a campaign with Caroline Criado-Perez to get women on banknotes. And it wasn't really about getting women on banknotes. It was about saying, if this is a way that we celebrate the female talent in our country, then the idea that we can't find in our history one woman for our banknotes tells us everything about how we see the women of today. And we fought that campaign, but you'll know we hit the backlash. Rape threats, death threats, bomb threats, people being told to stop talking to us. So being an activist is hard. You are discriminated against. There is going to be a backlash, because feminism isn't about women, it's about power. It's about the fact that power is unequally distributed in our society, and as a result, 51% of our society doesn't get the chance to achieve its potential. So in that environment, I am not going to ask you to lean in. I'm not going to ask you to take this journey on your own. I'm going to ask you also to go for the third A, which is to be an ally. Karen talked about cheerleading. For me, cheerleading, and I once wrote an article about this, and a women's magazine asked me to dress as a cheerleader. Didn't quite get the point. It wasn't Mary Claire, I promise you. Cheerleading is about using your strength to help somebody else find their strength. Because in a cheerleading troop, the flyer at the top of the cheerleading troop can only get there because other people lift them up and they have the strength to be there themselves. Being an ally is about supporting other women. It doesn't mean being uncritical, it doesn't mean always agreeing, but it means using your strength to help lift them up. Because in the process of lifting them up, you lift yourself up. So it's really not that difficult. I want you, next time you're in a position where you feel challenged, to think of the AAA challenge and to think, how can I bring answers? How can I act? And how can I be an ally? Because I promise you, when we do that, we'll all be Bessies. Thank you.